Hello, and welcome back to Mammalian Anatomy at Keuka College. Today, we're going to start Chapter 12, the fundamentals of the nervous system and nervous tissue. And this will start our overall unit on the nervous system. In this video, what I would like to do is give an overview of the videos you will see in this series. And also what I'll do is give a brief introduction into the general functions of the nervous system. So this video series is going to be divided into 4 major parts, each with these following subsections. Here we can see parts 1 and 2. Part 1 focuses on the organization of the nervous system. And here we'll look at a video that shows us the divisions of the nervous system. The nervous system can be divided into anatomical and functional divisions, and we'll go into much more detail in that video. Part 2 is going to focus on nervous tissue. We started looking at nervous tissue in Chapter 3, but here we're going to look at it in a lot more detail. There will be 4 videos for Part 2. The first one will look at the neuron, which is the fundamental cell of the nervous tissue. And this is a cell that is able to generate and propagate electrical current and is used for communication. We call that electrical current action potentials in physiology. The second video in this part is going to be the neuron and the synapses. Neurons actually communicate with each other in a specific section called the synapse. We're going to talk about the 2 different types of synapses, electrical synapses and chemical synapses, and see how these synapses allow for that communication to occur. The third video in this series is going to be the neuroglia. In addition to having neurons in nervous tissue, we have an additional category of cells called neuroglia that function to support and isolate the specific neurons. We call these cells neuroglia. There will be different neuroglia found in the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, and each of them are going to have a different function. So we'll go into details of that in that video. And the 4th video for this part 2 is going to be the neuroglia and the myelin sheath. Some of the neuroglia create a structure called the myelin sheath, which wraps around the neuron and is really important for speeding up the propagation of an action potential. So it'll make the electrical current travel much faster down the axon of the neuron. And so we'll go into details of that in that video. There'll be 2 videos for Part 3. Part 3 will focus on the gross anatomy of the nervous system rather than looking at the individual tissues. And that Part 3 will have 2 videos associated with it. The gray and white matter of the central nervous system. So the brain and spinal cord have areas of gray and white matter. They have different structures that are located there and will have different functions. So we'll learn about that in a little bit more detail. The second video for Part 3 is going to be about the anatomy of the nerve. Just like how muscles love to be bundled together with connective tissues, neurons within a nerve are going to be bundled with connective tissues as well. So we're going to go through that structure. It'll look very similar to what we learned in Chapter 10 when we talked about the organization of muscle fibers. Part 2 is going to be about neural integration. The nervous system is very, very complex, and neurons are going to connect together in really awesome and amazing ways. To start learning about that, we're going to start simply by looking at reflexes to get a general sense of how neurons are going to communicate with each other and how they'll synapse together. And then we'll go on to neural circuits to look at different ways that neurons can synapse together in much more complicated and intricate patterns. I kind of geek out about this because I think it's just super awesome, but hopefully you'll geek out with me. Yay for anatomy. All right, so those are going to be our 4 parts and the different videos that you will see for each part. But before I end this video, I want to go over the general functions of the nervous system. The nervous system has 3 major functions: gathering sensory input, integration, and responding using motor output. So, gathering sensory input. Essentially, our nervous system is going to try to make sense of our external and internal environment. The external environment is what we see around us in our daily life. It's going to be the world outside of our bodies. And so we're going to use things such as photoreceptors to detect light so that we can see, and then touch receptors to be able to feel the environment around us. So we have receptors that are going to help us understand that external environment. We can also detect changes in our internal environment. So what's going on inside of our bodies? Do you have a stomachache today? Or do you have a headache? Or do you feel like your blood pressure is low and you need to go get a snack? Something like that. So sensory receptors can also help us determine what's going on inside of our body. Any change that we experience in our external and internal environment, we call it a stimulus. So that would be the specific term that we would use for that definition. Think for a moment some external and internal stimuli that you are sensing right now. So I'll give you a moment for that. Okay. So that would be gathering sensory input. Integration is going to be the second function. So we're getting so much sensory input from our environment, and all of that sensory input has to be processed and integrated together to create a picture of what's happening outside of our bodies and inside of our bodies. So the central nervous system, such as the brain and spinal cord, is going to help us do that. And then what happens with integration is once we get a picture of our external and internal environment, our brain and spinal cord is going to make a decision what to do about that. So that would be integration. So really integration is about understanding the stimuli that our nervous system is collecting. Then the third function is response using motor output. Once our brain and spinal cord make a decision on what to do, it's going to send out motor information to effector organs. Effector organs are going to be glands and muscles that can enact a response in our environment. So, for example, if you touch a hot stove, what will happen is the brain will understand that stimulus, and it will send motor information to our muscles to actually pull our hand away from that hot stove. So the muscles in our arm would be examples of those effector organs. So take a moment to be able to go over different ways your nervous system is gathering sensory input, integrating that information, and creating a response. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next video, and have a great day.